Apricot, or Prunus armeniacum. This time of year, when all the cherry trees are starting to pop into bloom, the same genus applies here. The apricot belongs to the genus that includes the cherries and the plums, Prunus. It's a very large group of plants. These are not selected for the beauty of their flowers, but for the wonderful flavor and production of the fruit. They do have a wonderful flower though. I love the flowers of the apricot. They're slightly fragrant, are 5-petaled with multiples of 5 of all the stamens and other flower parts, which are indicative of its familial heritage, the rose family, Rosaceae. It shares that family with apples, pears, and many of the other what we call pomme fruits. You want to plant apricots where they are protected from an early spring warm-up. You want to suppress the time of bloom till a point where when they're in bloom, you won't have a killing frost. So you don't want to plant this in a protected spot on the south side of a wall or a building. You want to put it where there's lots of air drainage through it so that if it does frost, the frost will sink to the bottomland nearby. You also want that good air drainage because this plant shares those traits with many of its familial cousins, that it's subject to fungal problems, and by having good air movement through and around the plant, you can lessen a lot of those problems. You also want good soil drainage. Average garden soil is good for most fruit trees. It doesn't have to be real rich. In fact, it shouldn't be real rich. You don't want to fertilize with lots of nitrogen fruit trees. You'd rather have a good, well-drained garden soil. You definitely want full sun. Apricots flower in mid to late April and then produce the ripe fruit from about 4th of July to the middle of that month. The fruit ripens pretty much all at once, so it's best to have your canning equipment ready for apricot preserves or have an apricot party. You can also use it to flavor wine and cordials, but it's best eaten fresh. Apricots in our climate here in Connecticut are a little bit of a short-lived plant. If you plant them as a bare-rooted whip one year, we started getting fruit from this tree within 2 years, a small handful of apricots the second year, and then the third year we had enough to fill my hat, or maybe 2, and then the fourth year we had almost a bushel. There are a number of disease and insect pests to worry about with these and peaches and plums. Unless you have an active spraying program, which we don't here. We prefer to use good cultural practices, clean up in the fall around the plant, get all the leaves and debris from the apricot, from the fruit trees, pick that all up and get it out, remove it from the site. When pruning the plant as it grows, you want to do so in such a way as to provide as much sunlight penetrating the canopy and hitting the trunk and the branches as possible. This will help dry them out. It helps them with the fungal problems. It's also true that horizontally placed branches tend to flower more than branches that ascend steeply, and therefore bears more fruits. Apricots may be a short-lived tree, maybe 10 or 12 years. So you'll get 8, maybe 9 years of production out of them in our climate here in Connecticut, but it's totally worth it. The taste of a freshly picked tree-ripened apricot is something you won't forget. It's like biting into sunlight. Apricot, Prunus armeniacum.